31st Contact Part 2. Continuation of the 31st Contact report from the trip with Meier UFO on 17th July 1975, pages 361-377.
So these things discussed are only for you, and they fall under the seal of secrecy for other human beings. It is very important that you do not let them become revealed, because they must not influence the happenings of your world. You must not name these things officially until they have already happened. But that is then at your own discretion.
You can rely on me. You know that.
We know that.
You are a very interesting human being, because never before has Ascot put so much trust in an Earth human being, not even Meier UFO.
I am very honored by that, Nera. Thanks.
We must prepare slowly for the return.
Oh dear. I wish I could stay here forever. I feel so comfortable here.
That's up to you. If you feel the need, there's nothing to stop you.
There is no lack of will, Ascot, but I have my duty to consider, and my family.
You are extraordinarily dutiful. I am very happy that I was allowed to see you. Farewell now, and go back to your world in peace. Perhaps we will meet again, but it may be many years before then.
Probably when I am old and decrepit, eh?
You will remain the same human being for us, because it is not your appearance that is important to us, but your personality.
Thank you very much, Nera. You said that very nicely.
They are my honest thoughts. Now farewell. My duty calls me, and I really must go now.
Well then, goodbye, Nera. Think of me, too, for once.
I certainly will. Now farewell.
Nera leaves and disappears. Damn, how can life be lousy sometimes? These dear human beings, man oh man, and on Earth, damn it,
Don't do that. You will only cause yourself pain.
Well, oh, I see. What are my thoughts?
Sure, you are very emotional.
All right, I just let myself go again. I'm sorry.
You should not be, because your thoughts and feelings are very honest and good.
Oh, come on, don't do that now. If you allow me and there is still time, I would like to ask you one more question.
Question only?
Thanks. I thought you said that the device for photography was useless. I mean the one from Meier UFO. What about the one you want to make in collaboration? Do you think I will be able to take better pictures with it later, and that I won't always conflict with the grid frame?
I think the device will be good. But what do you mean by conflicting with the grid frame?
You know, the Meier UFO device is a bit complicated to photograph and a bit small. When I take a photo, I am always bothered by the small grid frame and the screen housing, and I always have that darn thing in the picture. I always have the half-oval shape of the frame appearing in the picture.
I will be concerned that these flaws do not appear on my device.
When am I supposed to be able to use this device?
Of course, on the next trip.
And when will that be?
That is not yet determined. In any case, it may take very long years or even decades until then, if at all. However, before going on another journey, I will kidnap you to another dimension.
What do you mean by that?
Each dimension of a universe has different parallel universes with parallel worlds. They are parallel dimensions or other space-time structures. So also beyond your home world, the Earth, other dimensions and worlds exist. These parallel worlds exist in superordinate or subordinate dimensions, in space-time structures that are foreign to normal time. On one of these kinds of parallel worlds, almost everything is the same as on the worlds of normal time. Only small differences prevail, especially in the times. And I want to travel with you into such a parallel world. It is a different form of time travel into the future or past than you experienced with Ascot.
Fantastic. When is that supposed to be?
That is not clear yet.
Well, good. Can I at least take photos there then?
Sure, but they won't be any different than when you take them in the normal space of your Earth. There are the same human beings and buildings there as on Earth, only everything is just shifted in time and space.
Nevertheless. But won't you interfere with me again and spoil the pictures like you did with the group shots?
Surely not, because I allow you to take photographs.
What are these things? What is it about these group shots?
I am not comfortable talking about it.
Have you lost control of yourself and committed an illogical act?
Yes, I am really displeased and embarrassed.
I see. That's why you do not want to talk about it. And I suppose you have also deliberately kept quiet about it?
Sure,
So you have been keeping something from me, Simyase.
I actually did because I was embarrassed in front of you.
Oh, look at that. So you can do that too? That is good news, because it makes you even more human and lovable in my eyes. But come on now, what cramp did you offer in the group shots?
I really do not want to talk about it.
This is not correct, Simyase.
I also think so. Look, you really don't have to be ashamed in front of us. Every human being might make mistakes. I am sure it also happens to your High Council. Or are you vain and feel your feminine vanity offended by revealing your cramp secret?
Vanity is really foreign to me. I am simply ashamed.
Please, you do not have to. You really do not, believe me.
You are not going to laugh at me?
My very great word of honor.
What about you, Asket?
I agree with what he said. But now speak.
Good. I acted completely confused and lost all control over myself.
But why?
Leave it to Simyase. I will explain. Simyase allowed me to take photos of her beam ships on several occasions. She expressly told me that no one else was allowed to be present during these photographs except me. However, I thoroughly violated this wish, because on one occasion I brought almost 10 persons with me to the place where I was to photograph the ship. I was then able to actually take the photos, and I also took pictures of all the persons. But Simyase didn't quite like that, and so she fiddled around with it before the film was developed, using some kind of rays and things that I didn't understand, in order to destroy the pictures. But in doing so, she only destroyed the outer films of the roll, while the inner ones, which contained the said shots, or was it the other way round, only became damaged and unclear. That is the state of affairs at the time. Apparently, however, she shot another cramp, about which she has remained silent.
Is that so, dear friend?
Sure. I didn't know then that he could deliberately act illogically and thereby break all logic.
Now Asket actually starts laughing.
Asket, you are laughing uproariously.
Asket somewhat calmed down again.
Simyase's situation amused me. The illogical manner of acting must have really upset her a lot. What did you really do?
It is incomprehensible to me because I have taken various illogical actions. It is really incomprehensible to me.
She partially destroyed the film for me with some rays before it was developed.
But why? If for some reason you did not want to allow the photographs to be taken, why did you appear at the scene of the event at all? Or if you had already been there, why did you not simply remove yourself? It is really illogical that you first had the pictures taken of you, only to destroy them later.
I told you it is incomprehensible to me. I have really lost control of my actions. It is incomprehensible to me and also extremely embarrassing.
Do not get excited about it, girl. You have obviously just lost your head and suddenly started thinking with your feet. That can happen to anyone. But what have you really done about it? Something is just not right, isn't it?
Sure, you are right. For certain reasons, I did not want you to photograph the group of people, but nevertheless, I let the ship become visible for you and let you expose it on the film, which I later tried to destroy, but then I made another mistake. Further on, in my incomprehensible excitement, I projected the landscape image in front of your camera that I just saw from my ship. However, you did not notice this because you were in a hurry to take the photo and overlooked it. It was a similar projection to the one you were allowed to make with your 3 friends. Therefore, there should actually be 2 different images on your negatives or slides that flow into each other. At least in some of the pictures. I also sent out a focused light source at the same time as the projection in order to overexpose your film, but incomprehensibly, I did not succeed either. The light energy only produced the effect of a double exposure, which did not destroy the images, but only damaged their sharpness. Finally, I wanted to do one more thing and sent out an elimination beam shortly before the film was developed in order to destroy the film. But in my excitement, which I simply cannot understand, I programmed everything exactly in the reverse order, which destroyed the wrong half of the film.
That was really very illogically acted by you. But the reason might be found in the fact that you had to face a completely unusual illogic, which you were not able to cope with. This led to a short circuit, so to speak, in your otherwise logical manner of thinking, which set off a veritable chain reaction of illogical actions, which could only be ended by running through their sequence of actions to the end.
Sure, it must be so, but I do not understand why I could act so irrationally.
That is very simple. A human being who thinks only logically can no longer imagine illogic at all. But if such an illogic approaches him or her, they are no longer able to overcome it with their logic and fall into a confusion. This confusion, however, triggers illogical conclusions that lead to such actions. These in turn have to die down before rational logic is able to break through again.
That is very precisely explained.
Sure, now I understand. But it is very difficult to get into a form of thinking that is unusual.
You are certainly right about that, Simyase. But I think it would be very good for you, and perhaps also for others, to venture into these forms of thought and explore them. Logic alone can be very dangerous if illogical forms are allowed to play into it. I believe that logic and illogic must work together in order to exist. One complements the other.
Again, that is very precisely explained, and it is also actually so.
I only understand this through this conversation. So I still have some learning to do in these things, too.
Then you have a good teacher, as the human beings of Earth say.
Sure, I have already learned many things from him, and his teachings are very lasting. Unfortunately, however, we really must hurry now. We have already overrun our time.
You can settle this again with a short time leap, can't you?
Sure.
Is this supposed to make me younger again, or maybe a little older for a change?
A few seconds younger.
Then it's not worth talking about. You see, I am getting sophisticated about these things.
Now really enough, dear friend. Farewell, and let your thoughts be with us. It was a wonderful pleasure for me to see you again. Farewell.
Ask it. What is it with you, girl? You, girl, you are crying. What is it?
It's all right. Now farewell, and perhaps we will meet again.
Man, I suddenly feel queasy. The poor child. It hurts him very much. Such a dear child, it is indeed sad and very moved. How sweet it is. I will push off, otherwise I will also start crying. Ah, they are already coming. Good, they are still talking and do not notice my thoughts. Man, that dear child, how sad it is all of a sudden. I would better not say any more, or she will cry again. It is very sad. Ah, good, here is the boat. I will disappear in it. Good, I am in. Oh, man. Oh, man. How can such a farewell hurt so damn much? Man, oh man.
Stop your thinking now. It's just good Ascot did not pay more attention or she would have really cried more. She is very sad because you are a very good and dear friend to her.
I know, Simyase. That's why I ran away so quickly. If I hadn't, I am sure I would still have been crying myself.
I don't believe you because you exercise tremendous self-control over yourself. So no matter how much your feelings storm inside you, you will only reveal them at the extreme limit.
You seem to know me very well.
Sure, I now know quite clearly that you are guided by your emotions, but that you are able to control and dominate those emotions almost to the point of self-destruction.
Simyase lets her ship glide out of the hangar, and a few minutes later, we are back in Ptah's giant spacer. Like the first time, we are carried up by a glider, pass through the park, and we go back again to the center where Ptah is sitting in his horseshoe.
I see you are full of joy and very sad at the same time.
You have very good eyes. I am sure you also understand why I feel so funny, don't you?
How could I not? It is these stirrings in you which are of the same kind in sentient life forms in all universes.
I know it is probably the law of love in a universal sense, but it probably only appeals to those who have aligned their manner of thinking with these laws. Or am I wrong in this assumption?
You prove yourself that you know it and do not merely assume it. It is as you say. You are very wise.
Thanks for the flowers, but what do we do now?
We are just about to cross back into our own universe. After that, we will stay at the end of the barrier for 50 minutes to close it again.
Does it take that long?
Sure, because we cannot just let it collapse, we have to close it systematically. That just takes time and requires a lot of care. From universe to universe, there are very few barrier points that can be used as a transition. They must also not be overused or overloaded, otherwise the barrier structure will be destroyed, which could lead to a universal ram belt catastrophe. So everything has to be done very precisely according to its order and according to the given laws, which of course always takes its time.
I see. Then I guess I am now redundant for the next 50 minutes?
We can talk quietly. The whole process of closure is programmed and will take care of itself without any special intervention on our part.
That is fantastic. Could I then ask you some questions that have been bothering me for a long time?
That was also meant to be.
Good, thank you very much. Firstly, I would like to know what we are going to do after the barrier closure has been carried out.
It is a fair question. The plan is to leap to different galaxies, visiting some planets and life forms with Simyase.
Man, this is great. Can I also talk to these life forms then?
I am afraid that will not be possible. We can only make our ship visible on very few worlds. So we cannot leave it either and have to be content with looking at everything from the beam ships. Nevertheless, it should be very interesting for you.
It is a great pity, but I don't want to push. I thank you for at least giving me this opportunity. But now I have something else. Until now, through you, Simyase, the earthly religions have only ever been spoken of in a negative wise. At least that must be the impression the uninitiated get from your explanations. I myself have known for a long time that this impression is deceptive, and that a very specific form of religion is addressed by the negative. But this does not emerge from the explanations you have given so far, which must surely give the uninitiated the idea that religion in and of itself is to be kicked into the dirt. This impression is wrong, I know that, but so far nothing has been done on your part to correct this wrong impression. What is your position on this?
This question is also completely justified, and I would like to answer it in detail. As with all things, everything requires a certain amount of preparation. Nothing can be undertaken and fulfilled without appropriate preparation. But if it is illogically done anyway, then an involuntary act takes place which can never be of value. An involuntary act is synonymous with illogic and rashness. And from such an involuntary act, therefore, only illogic can follow. If, therefore, the creation itself, for example, were to act involuntarily, there would be no laws and recommendations to secure the existence of all life forms, etc. There would be vain illogic and thus complete disorder. This means that nothing could exist, not even the creation. Arbitrariness, namely, means the free choice of the will and thus also the free choice of thought. An involuntary act, however, does not presuppose free will, but an act or a situation or something else which one does not oneself consider, is not capable of considering, or which one does not oneself want.
Note Billy of 7th Oktober 2000. Etymologisches Wörterbuch des Deutschen. Willkür F. Behavior and action according to one's own whim. Eigenmächtigkeit MHD. Wille, willkürend. Willy, Kur. Core, free choice of will. Free will, voluntary resolution, inclination, consent, agreement. Discretion is composed of the word treated under will and emeicht. Kure. Kure se kur. The meaning which has prevailed since the 18th century, aiming at the disregard of the interests of others see above, is already in the offing in Meier UFO. Usage in such cases where the free decision of one side is regarded as a restriction or coercion by the other, cf. Moed, nachzinnervinde willekeur. In addition, arbitrary AGE, proceeding at one's own discretion arbitrarily, 18th cent. A previously acting voluntarily by free decision, 16th cent. If this nemedi willekeurig. Explanation, Billy. Willkür, arbitrary, unwillkür, involuntary.
These are well-known terms that are used very often in everyday life, as well as in spiritual teachings and in numerous writings of the Figu. However, it has been shown that these terms are not understood correctly in their true meaning and in connection with many things, so that a useful explanation is necessary. The terms arbitrariness and arbitrary in their original meaning actually mean choice of will, according to the old word values, will, and choice. In this traditional conceptual value, arbitrariness is, in a positive sense, a mental voluntariness or free will, an inclination or affection, an agreement, a discretion, or a voluntary resolution whereby everything is always done of one's own free will. If a considered action wants to be done or a considered word spoken, etc., then free will as well as conscious free thinking is therefore necessary for this, through which a conscious and thought-out thing therefore comes about, but which can be negative as well as positive, according to the human being's liking. If a conscious thinking according to free will is brought into use, then an arbitrariness respectively, an arbitrariness takes place. Consequently, therefore, a conscious thinking according to free will is just as arbitrary as also an action, which is preceded by a conscious thinking according to free will. Arbitrariness or arbitrary, therefore, does not mean anything negative according to old conceptual values, but something positive, such as acting according to free decision through conscious thinking according to one's own free will. So everything that human beings do of their own accord must be based on arbitrariness, on the conscious choice of their free will, regardless of whether something negative or positive results from it. Thus, it is not possible for the human being to do or undertake something intended by him or her without making an effort of thought, within the framework of free decision by his free will. In the 18th century, a further conceptual value was created for arbitrariness and arbitrary, namely, a completely negative value that expresses itself in the form of disregard for the rights and interests, as well as the body and life of other human beings, but also through ruthlessness, arbitrary measures, arbitrary rule, negative arbitrariness, etc., and coercion as well as arbitrariness, negative action using one's own might, unrestrained, absolutist arbitrariness and threats, etc. in this sense. Therefore, the terms arbitrariness and arbitrary or arbitrariness, etc., are of a decidedly negative sense and value. Consequently, there is no longer any connection whatsoever with the original positive value. An involuntary act presupposes that no thinking power whatsoever determines or can determine an act. This means that an action takes place involuntarily or without thought and without consistency, which can or must always lead to negative effects and events. Such involuntary actions, however, are only capable of life forms that have not yet recognized the mental consistency in their course of action. In other words, this means that such thinking life forms are still in very minimal values in terms of consciousness and do not yet have control over their thinking form and thinking power. Thus, they are also able to act involuntarily, that is, without prior deliberation, without prior corresponding thought work. They simply have not yet learned to really think. If this were also the case with the creation, then nothing would exist, for through illogic in this form, everything is destroyed before it is even created. A positive arbitrary act or process means real life in contrast to involuntariness. That is, an arbitrary act presupposes a rational thought capable of determining the consistency of an action. This means that the existence of an action is consequently assured. This in turn states, the consistency of the action is logical. Arbitrariness, then, is logic and deliberation, and secures the existence of the action. Thus, by the logic of the creation itself, it is clearly evident that it is therefore arbitrary, deliberate, and logical action, and thereby secures the existence of all life. Only where arbitrariness is given can the consistency of an action be determined and thereby life be begotten. Arbitrariness is therefore necessary in all things, so also in the search for and dissemination of truth and knowledge. Thus, in order to make a truth intelligible, a way to understanding must first be created by arbitrariness. In this, arbitrariness means the means of communication between ignorance and understanding, and between ignorance and knowledge. Through arbitrariness, which in this form embodies the pure process of reflection and thought, the rational mind is stimulated to work and slowly led towards knowledge. If cognition is then sufficiently advanced, further teaching material can be supplied, which is then also actually further processed and utilized arbitrarily, whereby further cognitions are then gained. In a course of instruction, then, arbitrariness is of very great importance, for only through it is the logical consistency of the course of instruction guaranteed. But never can a doctrine be taught in its deepest insights at the beginning of the teaching. The necessary preparatory work and introductions follow first, in order to gradually penetrate into the center of the teaching and impart the actual knowledge. This process cannot be reversed, for this would mean an involuntary act, the consistency of which in the course of action would have to lead to disaster. Take the example of one of the professional teachings, as these are usual with you on Earth. If a human being of your Earth wants to become a physicist, he or she cannot immediately occupy himself with the deepest secrets and with the deepest knowledge of this profession, and immediately learn everything. First, he or she must laboriously enter into the preliminary work and learn everything slowly from the bottom up. When he or she has done this and acquired a certain knowledge, only then can they occupy themselves with deeper things and slowly penetrate into the center of knowledge of the profession. It is exactly the same with spiritual teaching. Therefore, my daughter has not yet reached into the deeper things of spiritual teaching and explanations, for first the seed had to be sown. This in turn first had to adapt itself to the soil, insofar as it fell on fertile ground. Then everything had to be enriched with vitalizing forces in order to be able to germinate. That is to say, the teaching parts and explanations, etc., delivered by Sim-Ya say so far, were and are the foundation stone for the main work which actually follows only now. What has been transmitted so far is in truth only the preliminary work by which Earth humans must be prepared for the core of truth. This, then, is an introduction and preparation for understanding and grasping the subsequent teaching and explanations. If, therefore, Sim-Ya Say has hitherto spoken only in a negative form about the earthly religions, this has its justification in the fact that thereby Earth humans had to be made aware of the falsity and unreality of their religions, for these are in every form evil and unreal, as is not the case elsewhere in these forms on the worlds known to us in this universe. When, therefore, the earthly religions are spoken of, they are meant in their negative forms, as they exist and find their applications and effects on Earth. Religions in this sense are a deadly danger not only on Earth or for the human beings of Earth, but they also hold deadly dangers for other worlds in this universe. Religions, in the sense in which they exist on Earth, are indeed unique in the realm of the universe as we know it, and we find no equal in any realm. As a deadly danger, false religions dominate Earth humans and with them the whole planet, and have been stunting your world in terms of consciousness for thousands of years. All progress in consciousness is blocked by these religions and cannot progress. The evolution of consciousness, and also the evolution of the spirit of Earth humans, are hindered by the false teachings of the religions. The earthly religious traditions still contain real values and wisdom of the creational laws and recommendations, but these have been distorted by humanly generated false doctrines and made so unrecognizable that only a few human beings are able to recognize the effective truth from them. These few, however, who are able to work out the real truth from the scriptures and traditions are ostracized and cursed by the addicts of these false religions if they are not able to spread the truth. Thus, when the earthly religions have been spoken of in negative terms by Sim-Ya Say, the falsifications and lies that are sometimes deliberately built up in the religions in a deceitful manner have been and are addressed by it. But it also refers to those purely human, infamous works, which you generally know simply as heresies and dogmas. Purely infamous works of irresponsible or mad Earth humans who, by means of these heresies which they have created, have been able to beat your whole humanity into poverty and servitude of consciousness. The earthly religions are called religions in name only, for in truth they are not such, but only cultic degenerations in a very evil sense. Religions in this form are always false and deadly. In truth, they are also not called religions, but cults. In your case, we call them cultic religions, because really religion-related facts are interspersed and falsified with cultic dogmas and false doctrines. Religions of the earthly kind, if they were practiced elsewhere on foreign worlds, would be just as false and of deadly danger as are the cultic religions of Earth humans. A truthful religion is the measure of all religions, that is, of all reconnecting facts. But this is also only creatively legally correct, if it is based on harmonious cooperation with the religion. This means that the reconnecting and the reassembling must be in harmonious harmony and must work together logically. Religion cannot exist without religion, but neither can religion exist without religion. Both factors must interlock and complement each other. In the earthly case, Since cultic religions prevail, the only salvation is for these existing false cultic religions to be eradicated and destroyed to make way for the true religion in harmony with the religion. This can only be done by the willing human beings aligning themselves only with the religion until they have won the battle over the cultic religions. Thus, at the present time and in the near future, only one direction of thought is the only correct one, namely, the religious, the reuniting. Earth humans must find the truth and reassemble it into the correct masses and forms. He or she must therefore think and act in a religious manner, so as to find again the truths from the real religion, and to assemble them into the attained complex of religious knowledge. Only in this manner does he or she tread the correct path and follow the laws of the evolution of the spirit and the evolution of consciousness. In particular, the heresies of earthly cultic religions rest in cursing and blaspheming and denying the creation. It as omnipotence is questioned and replaced by blasphemous heresies by a God who is supposed to be the Creator and who is also called Lord of all things. But the creation is in truth the Gewalt, the Almighty, and the glory itself. Through various circumstances, and not least through the megalomania of human creatures, IHW8's Wisdom Kings, people's leaders and human race leaders, who are called God in earth-human terms, have been pressed into the conceptual form of a creator and declared mendaciously to be the highest in the universe, namely creation itself. This is still evident today in the form of address of earth humans when they speak of their God as the Creator. The concept of the masculine, of he and him and the God, could not be erased even over many millennia by the representatives of religion. Consequently, this concept still bears witness to the humanity of the God and Creator and the gods on earth today. Earth humans, however, in their thoughtless stupidity and in their unwillingness to surrender to the truth, have been incapable of thinking about these things for a very long time. Stupidly, he or she continues to defend the cultic religions, which are without exception attuned to some earth human being and to a heavenly deity. And practically every religion refers to a founder of a religion who, with one exception, is worshipped and glorified as the chosen one of creation, whereby the believers then practice a cult of man, which, however, is ultimately inherent in all earthly cultic religions. Creation itself is completely disregarded and condemned to nothingness, because through the cultic religions it is replaced by the madness of a human substitute and by a God-creator. Creation itself, as the absolute omnipotence and glory of all being and being, is viciously denied and condemned. Whether this is done knowingly or in compliance with cultic religious heresies or as a result of other world views, it remains the same. In any case, it means the most monstrous blasphemy of the creation that can be thought or uttered by any life form. Apart from the creation itself, nothing is venerable, universal, loving, omnipotent, eternal, and awesome. It is the beginning and the end of all being and being itself. Apart from her, nothing is existent.
This is very detailed, and I believe that this in and of itself should be understood by all human beings, even those who are caught up in their unreal religions. I think that this explanation of yours should be sufficient to dispel the impression that religion in and of itself is simply wrong and should be eradicated. In my opinion, your words clearly state that in the negative sense, only cultic religions are being spoken of. That is to say, those that have been falsified beyond recognition by man-made dogmas and other false teachings, and through which the creation is blasphemed in the most evil forms. These blasphemies therefore also include all worship and sanctification of any human beings and objects, and to the same extent also the calling and elevating of a human being into the conceptual form of a creator or a creator's messenger, for a creator in the cultic religious sense is never the creation. A god, a creator, Or otherwise somehow a human being or other life form can never be the creation itself. Creation is neither a he nor a she, for it is quite simply the creation, the sexless one, thus effectively an it. That is how I see it anyway.
You evoke astonishing emotions in me, for your words correspond to the exact facts of truth. You have become very wise.
That is your opinion. Many human beings who know me say of me that I am a fantasist and that I live far from the truth.
I am well aware of that. But I also know that only such human beings claim this of you who are biased by religious heresies or who move in unreal and false free-thinking paths and deny the existence of the creation in its true being. In this respect, you will also have to make your experiences again shortly, when you are again accused of lying and untruthfully accused of consistently denying and rejecting other UFO contact people.
That is snappy. Who is going to initiate this again?
You have known about this for about 20 years. You will come across it again early on. Presently, it has slipped from your memory.
So you don't want to talk about it? Well, let's not. But now another question. Recently, it was explained to me that in various governments of our Earth, extraterrestrial intelligences are carrying on their activities and are even permanently employed there. What is this all about? Can we believe these statements?
You call such things fairy tales.
So this means that there are no star people working in our Earth governments?
That's what it says. If these statements were true, then peace would have come to Earth a long time ago, and earthly humanity would have been taught the truth by the governments. But since we extraterrestrial life forms, according to our directives, have no right to interfere forcibly in earthly affairs, we must confine ourselves to the form of selecting predetermined Earth humans for this purpose in order to be able to transmit our knowledge through them. If we had the right to interfere in the form of being allowed to act in government offices, then we could also show ourselves in public. I would then also not have to worry about being harmed by governments, the military, criminals, etc. Furthermore, it would also be impossible for us, in terms of vibration, to get involved with Earth humans in a direct or personal manner, because we would lose our control over ourselves. For very specific reasons, you are an exception, as you yourself know very well.
But it is said that these extraterrestrials would secretly and undetected participate in or with government agencies.
This is also not so, which your logic itself can confirm. If it were really so, then within only a few days, no authority, no government, and no military power would hunt down our ships, because we actually have all possibilities to nip such things in the bud. If we were to be active in any governmental bodies, there would be peace on Earth. So all the claims are nothing more than lies, I mean, when such things are claimed by us or by any other extraterrestrials. Such lies are often due to religious machinations of some sectarian elements and of unscrupulous fantasists, liars, swindlers, and frauds.
Well, that is a tough one, man, oh man.
But it is true. Unfortunately, however, it is precisely the truth that is often twisted by religious sectarians and fantasists and evaluated in their own favor. That is why there are also various groups that are supposedly concerned with the enlightenment of things with us and our ships, but who in reality only use this as a pretext to consolidate and spread their religious sectarianism in order to thereby beat the world even worse into religious bondage.
Can you be a little more specific about that? Like what kind of groups are they?
You will find out about this yourself through one of these groups in the near future.
So secretive. Are you really not going to say anything?
No.
Also good. Then I would like to know something else for once. I have heard and read that our scientists are trying to make their own earthly beam ships. Is that true, and how advanced are these things?
This information is consistent with the truth to the extent that such flying apparatuses are in their infancy being built on Earth. However, they are not beam ships, but flying machines similar to our ships, equipped only with explosion engines or, more recently, with jet engines with recoil effect. The construction of such ships on Earth in modern times is not entirely new, however, for the first ships of this kind were completed in planning and construction as early as 1941. In mid-February 1945, the first flights were carried out up to altitudes of around 12,500 meters, developing speeds of just over 2,000 kilometers per hour. It was all commissioned by the Führer of the Second World War, Adolf Hitler. At the end of the war, however, everything was destroyed so that it would not fall into the hands of the enemy. Various plans and devices and apparatuses, however, were overlooked and fell into other hands. From these, various groups developed the disc-shaped ships of terrestrial origin that exist today. These flying discs, as they are called by the designers, naturally require their test flights to test their properties, etc. Many of these objects can therefore be observed by Earth humans as they are flown about to be flown in or tested. The largest of these terrestrial flying objects of this type already reach nearly 10 meters in diameter and are already quite numerous. Of course, this is quite vigorously denied by the governments of the states possessing them. However, their machines have often crashed because they are still rather poorly developed in all respects. But the uninitiated human beings of Earth live in the mistaken belief that these flying discs they observe are of the same kind as our beam ships and come from extraterrestrial worlds.
So that is how it is. Then several of the UFOs observed around the world are not UFOs at all, but simply terrestrial flying discs.
That is so, yes. Often they are also forced to make emergency landings because their constructions, devices, and apparatus are still very inadequate. Their explosion engines and jet engines, which they recently also want to operate atomically, but which are still wishes for the future, very often cause combustion damage. Human beings who come into the vicinity of such combustion fires are so often also threatened by dangers of atomic radiation, starting from experimental atomic reactors, which are supposed to serve for propulsion, but which will not succeed for a long time yet. If distressed ships of this kind are approached by observers, by which I mean that they go near them, then they are often frightened by the occupants, or even abducted and deported in order to ensure their absolute silence. Such occurrences are unfortunately not uncommon on the Earth. But through the ignorance of human beings and various unreal enlightenment-striving groups, they are invariably attributed to extraterrestrial life forms. In truth, there are probably also malignant intelligences from outer space that haunt your Earth or stray there, but there are not so many of them that they would be of great significance. Most observations of flying discs with human predations are of terrestrial origin. Earth humans should be aware of this when they encounter any flying discs whose occupants are well aware of the fact that very many human beings believe these objects to be of extraterrestrial origin. This knowledge is also very often exploited by them by imagining some gullible Earth humans as extraterrestrial intelligences. Aware of their religious power, they also do not shy away from pretending to be angels and God's messengers and appearing as saviors of Earth humans, whereby they then proclaim the deceived gullible to be contactors and assign them mysterious missions, which are supposedly for the benefit of Earth humans, but which in reality only serve their own profit and the benefit of their own country's espionage. The most popular places of origin these malevolent deceptive elements and occupants of earthly flying discs name are Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, and Uranus. but also the nearest neighboring systems of your solar system have to serve for this, as well as the Pleiades in the coming time, when you will have become world famous through your contacts with us. In the process, my daughter Simya Se and my person will also be falsely accused of being contact beings with Earth humans who are fraudulent in this respect, as well as alleged Pleiades beings who do not exist.
You amaze me, Ptah. I have known all these things since my childhood. Even Svath and Asket told me these things, but I was always strictly enjoined to keep silent about them, and not to let them become revealed under any circumstances. But now you are also explaining them to me again, knowing that Simya Se will tell me everything later, because I am supposed to write it all down. Or are these things excluded and not transmitted later? Do I have to continue to keep quiet about it?
The time of having to keep silent is very far advanced, which is why you have also received permission from Asket to reveal everything now. So it is also with this knowledge. The time is ripe, so you are also allowed to name this knowledge, and your duty of silence becomes invalid. Simya Se will therefore convey my explanations to you verbatim. But now our time here is also over, and we prepare for the first leap.
I thank you for all your explanations, Ptah. Now, where are we actually going?
Since through our technology all distances have become of absolute insignificance, we can leap here and there, once closer to Earth, then again much further away. The order is unimportant. Anyway, we will show you some very important and very interesting things.